know that that's true. I've told you before that if the resurrection is true, it's all true. Christianity is true. If the resurrection is a hoax, it's all false. And we're to be pitied, as Paul is about to tell us, above all men in 1 Corinthians 15. So, beginning at page 299, did Jesus really rise from the dead? And this is Gary Habermas, who you saw depicted in the video about Strobel. Skeptics must provide more than alternative theories to the resurrection. They must provide first-century evidence for those theories. The resurrections, what do scholars say? Gary Habermas has completed the most comprehensive investigation to date on what scholars believe about the resurrection. Habermas collected more than 1,400 of the most critical scholarly works on the resurrection, written from 1975 to 2003. In The Risen Jesus and Future Hope, Habermas reports that virtually all scholars from across the ideological spectrum, meaning from those who don't believe to those who do believe, all different sorts of beliefs, from ultra-liberals to Bible-thumping conservatives, agree the following points concerning Jesus and Christianity are actual historical facts. So this is something that everyone would say is true, historically. Jesus died by Roman crucifixion. He was buried, most likely in a private tomb. Soon afterwards, the disciples were discouraged, bereaved, and despondent, having lost hope. Jesus' tomb was found empty very soon after his interment, that's his burial. The disciples had experiences that they believed were actual appearances of the risen Christ, or risen Jesus. Due to these experiences, the disciples' lives were thoroughly transformed. They were even willing to die for their belief. The proclamation of the resurrection took place very early, from the beginning of church history. The disciples' public testimony and preaching of the resurrection took place in the city of Jerusalem, where Jesus had been crucified and buried shortly after. The gospel message centered on the preaching of the death and resurrection of Jesus. Sunday was the primary day for gathering and worshiping, as opposed to Saturday, which is the Jewish Sabbath, which is what all of them would have believed was the Sabbath before this fact. James, the brother of Jesus and a skeptic before this time, was converted when he believed he saw the risen Jesus. Just a few days later, Saul of Tarsus, Paul, became a Christian believer due to an experience that he also believed was an appearance of the risen Christ. The acceptance of these facts makes sense in light of what we've seen so far. The evidence shows the New Testament story is not a legend. The New Testament documents were written well within 2 generations of the events by eyewitnesses or their contemporaries, living at the same time as the eyewitnesses. And the New Testament storyline is corroborated, is confirmed by non-Christian writers. In addition, the New Testament mentions at least 30 historical figures who have been confirmed by sources outside the New Testament. Therefore, the New Testament story cannot be a legend. The New Testament story is not a lie. The New Testament writers included divergent and embarrassing details, difficult and demanding sayings, and they carefully distinguished Jesus' words from their own. They also referenced facts and eyewitnesses that their readers either already knew or could verify. In fact, the New Testament writers provoked their readers and prominent first-century enemies to check out what they said. If that's not enough to confirm their truthfulness, then their martyrdom should remove any doubt. These witnesses endured persecution and death for the empirical claim that they had seen, heard, and touched the risen Jesus. Yet they did not have saved themselves, yet they could have saved themselves by simply denying their testimony. The New Testament story is not an embellishment. The New Testament writers were meticulously accurate, as evidenced by well over 140 historically confirmed details. The recorded miracles in those same historically confirmed narratives, and they did so without apparent embellishment or significant theological comment. So, is the New Testament true? If most scholars agree with the 12 facts stated above, because the evidence shows that the New Testament story is not a legend, a lie, or an embellishment, then we know beyond a reasonable doubt that the New Testament writers accurately recorded what they saw. Does this mean that all the events of the New Testament are true? Not necessarily. The skeptic still has one last out. The last possible out for the skeptic is that the New Testament writers were deceived. In other words, perhaps the New Testament writers simply were wrong about what they thought they saw. Given the characteristics of the New Testament that we have already reviewed, it does not seem plausible that the New Testament writers were deceived about everyday non-miraculous events. They have been proven right about so many historical details. Why doubt their observations about everyday events? But were they deceived about miraculous events like the resurrection? Perhaps they really believed that Jesus had risen from the dead, and that's why they paid with their lives. But they were mistaken or fooled. Perhaps there are natural explanations for all the miracles that they think they saw. Critical scholars leave themselves this out. Consider fact number 5 from the dozen facts that nearly all scholars believe. The disciples had experiences that they believed were actual appearances of the risen Jesus. In other words, scholars are not necessarily saying that Jesus actually rose from the dead, although some think he did. The minimal consensus of nearly all scholars is that the disciples believed that Jesus rose from the dead. For the eyewitnesses and contemporaries of the events to be wrong, there must be some other explanation for the resurrection and the other miracles recorded in the New Testament. Since the resurrection is the central event in Christianity, let's begin there. How do skeptics explain away the resurrection? So we'll stop there, and we'll pick up in your little atheist book. And we are on page 81. The main idea of this chapter is there are many points of historical evidence on which scholars agree concerning Jesus and Christianity. These actual historical facts refute all the alternative theories to the resurrection offered by the skeptics. We've already talked about in talking about the reliability of the New Testament. The New Testament is historically reliable, evidenced by early testimony, eyewitness testimony, uninvented, authentic testimony, and now this chapter is in eyewitnesses who were not deceived. So look at equip on page 82, equip number 1. Write down an abbreviated version of the 12 points concerning Jesus and Christianity that are agreed upon by both liberal and conservative scholars. I'll give you a chance to do that in just a second. But let's do number 2 first, and then I'll give you time to do that before we begin watching a bit of a video. These points about Jesus and Christianity are considered to be fact in light of what we know so far. Fact 1, the New Testament story is not a legend. Fact number 2, the New Testament story is not a lie. And then fact number 3, the New Testament story is not an embellishment. Now write down those facts from page 299 to 300, those 12 things, and then after you're done with that, we'll watch the first part of this video. I'm going to hand out the sheets for the video as you're doing